forefront of tax fairness is calling to abolish the IRS altogether. Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform, is here with a look at his new upcoming book, In the IRS Before It Ends Us. An entirely possible conclusion, I think, although I don't know if we can get rid of the IRS. Let's start with this new AP poll, Grover, because folks are really teed off at these high taxes. Take a look at some of these numbers. So many people in the middle class say they're overtaxed. What do you say?
Well, the American people are overtaxed, even more so if you look at history. My book is a book of how we got from where we started, 1 to 2% of our income government in 1774. That's just before we had a revolution, because they were thinking of going to 3 or 4, and the guns came out. 1 to 2, over time, it's now at about a third of the economy is taken and spent by government. For 138 years, there was no federal income tax.
But boy, howdy, there is now, my friend. And the world has changed and changed dramatically. Look, I want you to take a look at these numbers. So the AP came out with a poll saying that the wealthy, here's what the results of the survey, I'm just reading them. The wealthy pay too little, 68%. The middle class pays too much, 60%. Wealthy pay too much, only 11%. Now, I've heard you say before that this idea of getting the wealthy to pay more is not fair. What do you say today?
Well, what it is the politicians, when they say we're going to tax the rich, they haven't finished the sentence. We're going to tax the rich first, then we're going to get you. Obama promised he wouldn't raise taxes on anyone who earned less than $250,000 a year. Great selling point. It took him 16 days to tax people who made $40,000 a year. There are 8 different middle-class taxes in Obamacare. It's been a series of assaults on middle-income people, but every once in a while they say they're going to punch a rich person and you're supposed to feel better. The reason why they say we're taxing the rich is to distract you from the hand in your pocket.
You know, I think a lot of people don't realize the degree that taxes have been foisted on the middle class during Obama's tenure in office. How have we missed that? Is it just the rhetoric that's obscuring this?
Well, it's the rhetoric, and the president talks about it. The establishment press doesn't really cover it. I mean, how many times? There are 20 different taxes in Obamacare. The establishment press covered Obamacare as if it was about health care. It's about a massive set of tax increases that's going to take in trillions of dollars, and they phased it in to take effect after a series of elections.
You know, it's like being to a pot of water where they turn up the heat slowly and you only boil over time, you know? It's exactly like that. So tell me, if you would, how do you end the IRS? How does that happen?
Sure.
Do we want to end the IRS? Does that make sense?
We want to dramatically reduce the size and cost and scope of government. I have about 20 different ideas, all of which take you part of the way there. Watch one thing that's happening. There's a drive to add to the 9 states now that don't tax income. If you're in California or New York, they'd say, well, you have to have a state income tax, don't you? Well, they don't in Florida. They don't in Texas. They don't in New Hampshire. So there are a number of states that function perfectly well, better than the high tax states. People move to no income tax states. As we go from 9 states to more, Arizona is looking to go to 0. Kansas is looking to go to 0. When we get to 20 or 30 states, I think the case can be made we can do the same thing at the national level.
And how are we going to fund our armies? And, I mean, there are things we need to pay for, right?
Well, the federal government's 30% of GDP, and the Army's about 3 to 4% of GDP.
It'd be a lower bill.
Yes.
Comparatively. Grover, thanks for coming on.